Okay, imagine this for a second. What if your business could cut labor costs? Like seriously cut them, maybe up to 80%, but without the quality dipping at all.
Sounds almost too good to be true, right?
Exactly. Sounds like a pipe dream. But today we're diving into a really interesting new report suggesting this is actually happening. And a huge part of the story, Africa.
Yeah, precisely. We're looking at the Africa Remote Work Advantage Report 2025. It's from Cabanga Media Group and behaviorreport.com. And it really digs into why Africa is becoming this major hub for global remote talent.
So our mission today is basically to unpack that, right? Figure out the key advantages the report highlights for businesses, maybe like yours, thinking about them.
And it's pretty comprehensive. They looked at 16 countries.
16? Wow. Okay, so places like South Africa, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Zambia, Malawi, Kenya, Ethiopia, Ghana, Nigeria, Egypt, Mozambique, Namibia, Angola, Eswatini, Rwanda, and Tanzania. That's a wide net.
It really is. And the lead researcher put it quite bluntly. They said, remote work is not just a trend, it's the infrastructure of modern business. Africa is not waiting to catch up. Africa is ready.
Strong statement.
Oh,
Makes you sit up and listen.
definitely. And the report backs it up with some pretty compelling points. Let's start with the big one, those cost savings.
Right, the 70–80% figure, that's huge.
It is, compared to Western markets, yeah. But, the immediate question everyone asks is, okay, great savings, but does the quality suffer?
That's always the concern, isn't it? If you pay less, do you get less?
Well, the report is pretty clear on this. It argues that these savings don't mean you have to compromise on the actual work quality.
Which, if true, think about what that means for a business. The resources you free up. I mean, that could go into scaling faster, more innovation, other critical stuff.
Right.
Potentially game-changing.
Absolutely. And it's not just about, lower wages in isolation. It reflects different economic conditions, maybe lower overheads, meaning you can get similar results for a much lower overall investment. That capital can then be used strategically.
Makes sense.
And another surprising thing, perhaps, is the talent pool itself. It's incredibly diverse. The report really stresses that African remote talent isn't just like the tech sector.
Which is often the first thing people think of with remote work, yeah.
Exactly. But we're seeing skilled people in IT, sure, but also marketing, finance, research, admin support, customer service, even things like healthcare support, legal assistance, VAs, design. It's broad.
That is a much wider range than I think many would assume, and the numbers.
Huge potential. Hundreds of thousands of graduates are coming into the workforce across the continent every year. So you've got this massive multi-skilled talent pool building up all on one continent.
Okay, so the talent is there, the cost advantage is clear.
Yeah.
What about fitting into, how global businesses actually work, culture, communication, that sort of thing?
That's another key point the report makes. Global alignment. It talks about strong compatibility with international business culture. That's crucial for smooth integration, right?
Definitely. Less friction onboarding people.
And then there's time zones. Africa's position is actually really advantageous. You get significant overlap with Europe, the Middle East, even partial alignment with the U.S. and Asia Pacific.
Oh, that's huge.
Yeah.
That time zone overlap makes real-time collaboration so much easier, doesn't it? Daily check-ins, working together on things.
Exactly. It simplifies everything. You can have synchronous workflows, and it even opens up possibilities for follow the sun models for 247 operations without the usual logistical headaches.
Right, passing work along seamlessly.
Yeah.
And languages, is that a factor?
A big one, and growing. The report highlights this expanding base of professionals who are fluent in multiple key languages, English obviously, but also French, Arabic, Portuguese, Swahili.
So a business could potentially serve diverse global markets from one team.
That's the idea. Imagine improving customer satisfaction because you can communicate in their language with cultural understanding. It builds connection.
Yeah, that makes a real difference. What about keeping people? Is retention mentioned?
It is, yeah. And it's quite interesting. The report notes high retention rates and a deep sense of loyalty among many African remote workers.
Why is that?
Often, they see these remote jobs as really significant career opportunities, major steps forward. So there tends to be strong commitment.
Which, for an employer, is gold. Lower turnover saves money and keeps experience in-house.
Big time. And this cultural fit we mentioned, it's not just language. It's familiarity with, Western business norms, using standard international tools, adapting to global team cultures.
Yeah.
It smooths out the whole process.
Okay, so the people side sounds compelling. But the big question mark for many would be infrastructure. Can the tech actually support reliable remote work across these countries?
That's a critical point, and the report tackles it head-on. It emphasizes there have been major improvements in digital infrastructure across Africa.
Like what specifically?
Well, rapid expansion of fiber optic networks, for one, widespread 4G, and increasingly 5G too,
Yeah.
and a very strong mobile-first internet culture in many places.
And things like power, consistency.
Also addressed. The report mentions the growth of co-working spaces, especially in cities, which often have reliable power backups. That helps ensure consistency.
Okay, so practical solutions are emerging.
Right. And it's not just about having an internet connection. It's about being ready for modern work. The report stresses that professionals there are generally proficient with cloud tools, Zoom, Slack, Trello, Google Workspace, the usual suspects.
So they can basically plug straight into existing systems.
Pretty much. Immediate productivity potential.
So that's the now. What about the future? Is this a sustainable source of talent long term?
This is where Africa's demographics become a massive advantage. The report points out it has the largest and fastest growing working age population in the world, and a huge proportion of that is digitally native youth. So this isn't just a temporary trend. It looks like a long-term hiring advantage for companies needing to scale.
Yeah, and it's not just theoretical potential, right? People are already doing this successfully.
Oh, absolutely. The report makes it really clear this isn't some future idea. Global delivery from Africa is happening right now. There are loads of success stories already: tech, design, admin, customer support, you name it.
Interesting. The report also links hiring in Africa to broader things like ESG goals and the UN Sustainable Development Goals. How does that connection work?
Well, the thinking is that creating these kinds of remote work opportunities directly contributes to several SDGs. Things like reducing poverty, driving inclusive economic growth, providing decent work, gender equality, even education access indirectly.
So companies hiring there aren't just filling roles, they're potentially hitting some of their ESG targets too.
Exactly. It aligns with those environmental, social, and governance objectives that are becoming much more important for many organizations.
And you see big tech companies investing there too, right? That must help.
Definitely. The report mentions significant investments by Microsoft, Google, Amazon, building data centers, funding subsea cables. It's a massive vote of confidence and directly improves the digital backbone that remote workers rely on.
There was also a point specifically about women's empowerment.
Yes, that's highlighted too. The flexibility of remote work can be really transformative for women's economic participation. That obviously helps families, communities.
And helps companies meet diversity and inclusion goals.
Precisely. It's a win-win.
And are governments helping this along? Or is it purely private sector driven?
No, governments are definitely playing a role. The report mentions active support through incentives, training programs, setting up special economic zones focused on digital services.
Any countries leading the way?
Kenya, Egypt, South Africa, Nigeria are mentioned as being particularly proactive in creating a friendly environment for this kind of growth and making remote hiring easier.
Okay, now one slightly unusual point mentioned was accent neutrality.
Yeah, that's an interesting practical advantage, especially for voice-based roles like customer support. The report notes that in places like Kenya, Zimbabwe, South Africa, the English accent tends to be quite neutral.
Which can be better for customer experience compared to some other common offshore locations, potentially.
That's the argument, yes. It can enhance clarity and ease of communication.
What about resilience? Dealing with challenges.
That's another strength the report points to, this inherent resilience and adaptability. African remote workers are often very resourceful in finding solutions if there are issues, like connectivity problems.
Using mobile hotspots, backup power, finding ways to get the job done.
Exactly. They're used to finding workarounds to maintain productivity and keep projects on track.
Okay, so let's say a business is listening and thinking, this sounds interesting, but hiring internationally, dealing with compliance across different countries? That sounds complicated.
Yeah, that's a valid concern. The report acknowledges this and highlights the role of intermediaries like Cabanga's partners, for example.
What do they do?
They essentially handle the complexity. They manage the international HR, the payroll, the compliance across different African countries, and provide businesses with access to vetted, ready-to-work remote teams. Sort of simplifies the whole process.
Got it. And South Africa was mentioned specifically as a kind of benchmark.
Yeah, it's positioned that way, partly because it has a relatively mature digital infrastructure, plus specific government initiatives like a remote work visa and broadband expansion plans. Combine that with a skilled workforce.
It makes it a sort of reliable starting point or model.
Kind of, yeah. A strong, relatively secure model for remote hiring. But the report is quick to add that many other African countries are rapidly catching up and putting similar things in place.
Okay, so let's pull this all together. If we boil down everything from this deep dive into the Africa Remote Work Advantage Report 2025, what's the main takeaway?
I think the core message is pretty clear. Africa isn't just a future possibility for remote talent, it's a present-day strategic advantage. You've got the cost savings, yes, but also this deep, diverse talent pool, the alignment with global business practices and time zones, and this real momentum in digital growth.
So for you listening, it's something to consider now as business needs evolve, not just down the road. And if you want to dig deeper into all this,
The full report, the Africa Remote Work Advantage Report 2025, has all the details. You can find it at cabangagroup.com/Africa Remote Work.
CabangaGroup.com, Africa Remote Work.
Got it. And maybe, the final thought to leave people with is step back and consider, how could bringing remote talent from Africa into your strategy actually change things? Not just filling gaps, but fundamentally reshaping how you operate, moving beyond old hiring models, maybe even contributing to that wider global impact we talked about.
A lot to think about there. Definitely worth exploring.